Welcome back to the Yoga Chat. I'm your host, Montana,
I'm your host, May.
and
I'm
we're
feeling
back.
well.
Yeah.
Neither of us have digestive problems.
Nope, not at all. At least I have uh, like
A
a
fun story.
reason. Yeah. I mean, not that you don't have
Yeah,
a reason, but you're like, I don't know why. I thought it was food poisoning, but it's still here, so it's not. And I'm like, well, I trashed my body, but fed my soul for 2 weeks. So that's why.
good.
That's why.
Speaking of you trashing your body but feeding your soul, how was your trip?
So May is so kind and she's letting me talk about the trip on this episode. So that's what this episode's going to be about, my trip. Mostly because I wanted to start from beginning to end. And then when people ask me, how was your trip? I can say, go listen to the podcast. Shameless plug, number one. Number two, there's just like, when someone's like, how's your trip? I'm like, amazing. Like, what do you have half an hour?
Go listen to my podcast.
So, yeah. So
I'm all about the shameless plugs. I think we need to start shamelessly plugging it more.
we should.
Season 2 is the season of shameless
Shameless
plugs.
plugs. I love
Because
it.
last season I was afraid of like, oh my God, I'm one of those annoying bitches that has a podcast and nobody gives a shit. But guess what? I don't give a shit. If you think I'm annoying, go fuck
Don't
yourself.
listen to it.
I have a podcast and I'm going to talk about it, and you don't have to listen. And that's all I have to say about that. Shameless
Yeah.
plugs are in. Being
We
timid
have
is
a
out.
podcast. Feels good to say
Yes.
that. This is also our last summer vacation episode. We'll start with season two on November 1st, which is crazy and really fun. Um, okay, so I'm going to start with the reason we went to Brazil is because I turned 30 next month and I wanted to go for years. I'm like, for my 30th birthday, I want to go on a big abroad trip. And I really want Matt, my husband, to go with me. I travel a ton, whether it's for work or for whatever reason, for fun. And Matt doesn't travel nearly as much. He just isn't like, he likes going places. He doesn't, or he likes being places, he doesn't like going places. So I was like,
Same.
I'll go. Yeah. I was like, I'll go anywhere in the world. And he's particular. So I was like, why don't you pick where we go? Because wherever you pick, I'm going to be happy. And so, to my surprise, this was back in January or February. He was like, let's go to South America. And I was like, all right. And then he's like, let's go to Brazil. And I was like, okay. Was not expecting that. I'm like, you realize that's double the distance from Europe, but the opposite direction or the a different direction. But that's okay. Let's do it. And
I didn't know that. So wait, a flight to Brazil is longer than a flight over
oh
to
yeah.
like London?
Oh yeah,
Oh
It's like
shit.
literally double. So from Pittsburgh to
Wow.
London or like New York City to London is like 6 hours.
Mhm.
And from Atlanta to Rio was like 10 and a half hours. Yeah.
My mind is blown and my sense of geography feels all fucked up now.
And do you want to know the craziest part? When you go to London, it's like 6 hours ahead or something. I don't know, four,
Yeah.
six, whatever. The time change is very different. In Brazil, because you're just going south, it's only an hour ahead. So it's
Really?
like, yeah, so it like is more jet lag going to Dallas, going home than it
Hmm.
is. I guess that's an hour too, but like it's more jet lag going to California than it is going to Brazil, which is crazy.
That's a good
Um,
hack.
that made it a lot easier
Yeah.
also, like coming back. Another thing I just want to share too, because I'm doing this in my bedroom and my bed's not made. Sorry, not sorry. Um, so also for my 30th birthday, I asked my stepmom, it got brought up somehow. Anyways, to make a long story short, I asked for a pregnancy pillow. And she's like, what the fuck? And I was like, they just look so comfortable. And I've just always wanted one. So, like, can I have a pregnancy pillow for my birthday? And she was like, oh my God, yes. And let's play a trick on Matt. So, like, I'll send it to the house and you can, for a second, like, pretend like you're pregnant. And I was like, yeah, that's so good. Let's do it. Well, it arrived when we were in Brazil. So, when we got home, we had like all this mail and all these packages. And Matt ended up opening up the box and he's like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, I'm pregnant. And he was like, I just watched you drink alcohol for 14 days straight. I know you're not pregnant. And I was like, yeah. I was like, well, Cheryl, that's my stepmom. I was like, thanks for the pregnancy pillow. Our joke didn't really play out that we wanted it to. But I've had it for 3 nights now and it's amazing. And everyone should
Wait,
get
did you get one of the ones that's shaped like a
it's a
J that
you.
you like?
Yeah.
You, dude. Okay, so I had that when I was pregnant,
It's
and Ed
huge.
Ed always talks about how like I would fall asleep in it really blissfully, and in the middle of the night, I'd wake up in a rage and just start throwing
Oh
it all
no.
across the bed because I was like, it
Get
took up
at
so
me.
much space, and I was like, "Get away from me." And so that was our big joke that, like, it was something I wanted, and it worked for 1 hour every night, and then it made me really pissed off for the rest of the time.
That's
It takes up
hilarious.
so much space.
It
It's like
does, but it's
snuggling with
like,
a grown man
yeah, it's like the perfect snuggle without, and then you get to decide when you kick it
without the
off. But
body heat, yeah.
yeah. So anyways, that was just a fun side fact. So we left on Monday, and on the way there was a lot harder than on the way back. So we flew 2 hours to Atlanta, 6.5 hours to Peru, and then 5 hours to Rio.
Oof.
And the Rio, so we left at like 11 a.m. on Monday, and then we got to Rio at like 6 a.m. on Tuesday. So it was a long, long, and we left by the time we like left our house and finally got into our room, it had been 30 hours. Um, so
Good thing you
our
stayed 2 weeks. That's like one of those travel things where, like, you can't just do that for 1 week. It doesn't even make sense.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
like we spent essentially 2 full days, 2.5 days traveling. So we really had 10 days in Brazil. Um, but that was the only thorn of my trip was that 5 hour flight. So we flew Delta, which Delta is amazing. But then from Peru to Rio, it was like an off-brand South American flight airline. And so the airplane was just like so small and just like trash. And I couldn't figure out how to pick our seats on that one. So Matt and I were both in the very back row in the middle seats. And by the grace of God, a flight attendant looked at Matt. His knees were like up in his nipples. And I'm exaggerating, but not really. And a flight attendant saw him and literally grabbed his arm and said, "Too big," and pulled him to the front. Yeah, pulled him to the front and had him sit like in the first row before business class. And he kind of looked back at me and was like, "Is this okay?" And I was like, "Dude, if I'm uncomfortable, I can't." I was like, "Go, just go."
Mhm.
So for 5 hours, my knees were like in my rib cage and I was just like sitting up straight. And I was like,
That was
so
a
that was,
five-hour flight.
yeah. And there wasn't um, like Peru is actually pretty close to Brazil, but we went like Peru and Brazil are close to Brazil's west side, but we flew across the country over to the east side. So that's why it was so far. Um, and they didn't have like TVs on the seats. And I think I can't remember exactly what I did, but I brought my laptop literally for just this reason and then didn't have my laptop for this reason. I like didn't think to grab it. We were very tired at this point, and Matt like put my backpack like very far up, like because we were one of the last people, and we just had to shove the backpack wherever there was space in the overhead bins. And so by the time I sat down, I was like, I'm not like it's just I just
So wait,
have to
did you
raw
raw
dog
dog that
this.
flight?
I mean, I'm really good, luckily, at like making myself sleep anywhere. So I put my eye mask on and I put on like sleep sounds, had my lavender oil, and like slept, I say with big bunny ears, because like, I mean, I didn't get any rest, but like I was able to, for the most part, like
Zone
be
out.
asleep. Yeah, zone out. So, but that was the only thorn. So then we got to Rio and we got to our place where we were staying, which is called Selena, which is a like a really cool hostel. Um, and we got there, like I said, we probably got there by about 8 a.m. and then we couldn't check in till 3. So we changed into our swimsuits and left our bags there and went to the beach and hung out on Copacabana Beach all day long. It was amazing. I fell fast asleep in that chair, and that's why I got that wild tan line. Um, Matt took the most disgusting photo of me that has ever been taken, but also warranted after 30 hours of travel. I was like, for the love of God, like I'm not big on, I don't care what's posted on me on social media for the most part, but that picture, I was like, nobody sees that. He was like,
Can I
everyone on
see it?
Copacabana. Yeah, I'll show it to you for sure.
Can you see it?
It's like, it's not even that bad. I'm just like literally in a chair, like and like my belly is just like I'm so bloated and I'm just like I look like a red Santa Claus. So yeah. But anyways, so we spent so then that night we went to dinner. Every night dinner was amazing. That night we got into our hotel, we changed, went to dinner, um, came home and like for a few nights for whatever reason we watched Kill Tony on YouTube because we didn't have access to like TV or like any streaming services. So Matt's like, what's on YouTube? And he's like, what about Kill Tony? And I was like, I hate that I love Kill Tony. And he's like, no way. He's like, I didn't know you actually liked it. And I was like, depends on who's there, but yeah, I kind of do. So we watched Kill Tony like 3 nights in a row, which was really funny. And then um Wednesday we woke up and we were like, let's just have a chill day. So again, we like explored Rio kind of. We went over to Ipanema Beach, which was awesome. It was a really cloudy day, which was good because I needed that after my sunburn. Um, we found this like speakeasy coffee shop, which was really cool. We got some lattes. And then we just like chilled, went to dinner again. And then Thursday we woke up and we did a city tour, which was so fun. And I'm like not big on tours, but from all the research that I did, like if you want to see a lot of Brazil, the best, pretty much the only safe way to do it is in a tourist setting because there's such dangerous parts. Where we were staying was very safe. I never felt like scared or anything. It was also very touristy, but not like it didn't feel touristy to us because we literally met one American person while we were there. One. So
I
like
was
there
gonna
was
ask you,
lots
what
of
was it like to not speak the language really well? Like, did a lot
really
of people
hard.
speak English or not really?
Um No one spoke good English. Some people
Okay.
spoke some English, but we were straight up like using the translator like camera on menus to like read what
Okay.
we were ordering. And it was really that's a funny thing too. Like Matt's mom is from England and his grandma lives in Spain. And so he's been um like to Europe before, but not really. I mean, I think he's been to Spain once, but England enough times. And but never he's not used to being somewhere where someone where they don't speak English. And I think like I really do think this growing up in Texas, like there's just a lot of Spanish speaking people. And so I grew up learning how to communicate slowly to people that don't speak great English. And Matt would literally go up to people and just talk, like shoot the shit like this. Like he would just like talk so fast and like use lingo, blah, 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 and they'd be like, what the fuck? And
What the fuck?
I'd be like, coffee, cinnamon. And Matt's
Cafe.
like, yeah, exactly. Like, my Spanish is way better than my Portuguese. I only speak a little tiny bit of Spanish, but like no Portuguese. So that helped too because I would speak Spanish and then they'd be like Espanol and I'd be like
Un
Inglés and they'd be like
poquito. Yeah.
yeah. So like we'd speak broken Spanish to each other a lot of the time is what would happen. But on this tour, we went to so many different places. We went to Sugarloaf, which I have to tell you this part too. In Portuguese, it's called açúcar, pau açúcar, something. But the word that means like loaf or bread is very close to the word that means dick, and it like sticks up from the ground. And our tour guide told us, he's like, you have to make sure you say it this way and not this way. Otherwise, you're saying sugar dick.
Take me to the sugar dick.
Yeah.
Take me to the sugar dick.
Yeah. It's so funny. So we just stuck with English and called it Sugarloaf. Um, and that was really cool. Our tour guide, his name was Wesley. He was really awesome. His story was really cool too. He obviously spoke on the tour. He would speak in Spanish and then Portuguese and then English. So he would say everything in 3 languages. He was incredible. Um, and we
Was he
made
from Brazil or was he American?
he was from Brazil, so he grew up in the favelas. So the favelas are essentially the ghetto. It's like all the like when you think of Brazil's like hillsides and you like think of the like homes that look like huts, essentially, those are
Yeah.
favelas. And so he told us that like he came from that and he was able to like pull himself out of that. And now he's been doing tours for 5 years and he like travels all over and he has really like made a name for himself. So, and he was like, I would say like my age or maybe in his mid 30s, I would say. Um, and we also went to like we saw where they did like the World Cup and we saw where they did like the Olympics. We went to, of course, Christ the Redeemer. We had lunch. It was a full day. It was like an 8 hour tour, and we were in a bus just driving around and stopping at these different places. So at lunch, immediately, this one woman, her name's Z, she goes by Z, she's from Israel. She was the only other person on the bus that spoke English, like whose first or preferred language is English. Her first language is Hebrew. Um, but she like looked at us and she's like, "So you guys are clearly the English speaking couple, right?" And Matt was like, "Hey, why are you judging a book by its cover?" And she's like, "Ha ha ha." So we became quick friends with her. And then when we stopped for lunch, we were at this like random place that was like a buffet style. And um, she was like, "Oh, we went to the steps too, the really cool like tiled steps." Which was crazy and full of people and just really cool to see. And at the bottom of those steps was a kiosk essentially that makes, I am so bad at saying this. I'm going to try my best. They make caipirinhas. When I tried to order that at one point, someone thought I was asking for a Pinot Grigio. So I stopped saying the word and I started saying cachaça, which is like their rum. I'd say cachaça, limon, lime, and I'd go like this because they shake it. And then they'd be like,
Doesn't
"Oh,
a
hey."
caipirinha also have like a raw sugar cane in it and like even
Yes.
egg white?
No egg white. I mean, the classic. So what they do is they literally take whatever fruit you want. So my favorite was passion fruit or just lime, and
Oh,
then sugar, and they literally just muddle that fruit with the sugar until it becomes a syrup. Then they add ice, and then the only liquid in there is the cachaça. And then eventually the ice melts, but like you don't add water or
oh
anything.
wow.
So one of those made me like two done. That's also another reason why I fell asleep on the beach the first or second day because I had a second one and was like, "Whoa, that is not a cocktail. That is liquor on ice with sugar and a little bit of
Mhm.
lime." Um, so we got one there, and then once everyone had a caipirinha, can't say it, everyone like obviously like opened up and we're like, "Oh, now we're all friends." So when we
Best
went to
friends.
lunch, yeah, when we went to lunch, Z was like, "Everybody, let's order beer." And we're all like, "Okay." So we sit at this table with this guy named David from Colombia and Alejandro from um Chile. And like the six of us ended up becoming, or five of us ended up becoming like friends, and we like hung out for like the rest of the tour. And the other people that were there were a little bit older, and so they were just like laughing at us and spoke Spanish, no English, no Portuguese, just
Mhm.
Spanish. And at one point, the woman asked me, she's like, "How did you get sun? Like it's so overcast." And I was like, "Because I started drinking, so now I'm blushing." And she like thought that was and we're like speaking very broken to each other. And
Mhm.
she's like, "Ah," like she admitted she's drunk. I was like, "Yeah, obviously I'm drunk. I had a cup full of rum and a beer. Yeah, I'm drunk." um, and so, yeah, like it was just really cool. So after the tour, they dropped us off back at Selena, and David and Alejandro got off the bus with us, came up to our room, hung out. We ended up going up to the bar upstairs and like grabbing a drink where Wesley met us, who was our tour guide. He came back and met us. And so then we went to dinner together. And then by the time dinner was over, I was like, "Matt, I have to go home. I can't be around people, and I have had too much to drink. So it's time to call it quits." And Matt's like,
Cutting
"Word."
myself off.
Yeah. I was so tired, dude. I was so tired. So that was a really fun day. We got to see like all of Rio essentially. Then the next day, we woke up and we flew to Iguazu Falls, which was about an hour and a half flight.
What did that airplane look like? Was that a little
So I
propeller
was
thing?
No, it was pretty much the same airplane that we rode from Peru to. So it's like a regular size, like 3 and 3.
Okay.
I was expecting like I know I was expecting anything because I was like a domestic Brazilian flight. Let's see. But it was
Right.
literally like you were on Southwest or something. It was smaller, like it felt smaller. I wouldn't have known, but because Matt's 6'4", he was like, "That was fucking tiny." And I was like,
Right.
"Oh, I guess." Um, so we flew there, and then as soon as we landed, I was like, "I don't know if they're gonna have Uber or not." Rio had so much Uber, it was fine. And so I open up the Uber app and it's like there's Ubers. I'm like, "Cool." So I type in the hotel and immediately it's like, no cars available. I'm like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, "Matt, you try. No cars available." So I'm like, "Whatever. Let's go out and hopefully find a nice cab driver that's not going to take us forever for the rest of our lives and we're done." Um, and we did. We found a really nice cab driver. His name was Jahar, and he spoke really good English, which is like the only, well, two people that we met that spoke really good English. I mean, all the people on the tour also spoke really good English. People that lived there didn't necessarily. Um, so we go outside and I'm like, hey, like this is where we're going. Like it's about a 20-25 minute drive, right? And he's like, yeah, it just depends on like how much time it takes at the border. And I was like, the border. And he's like, yeah, this hotel's in Argentina. And Matt was like, I could like sense his energy just being like, fuck. But he like swallowed it and was like, all right, let's go to Argentina. And I was like, this moment could have gone so differently. Because that was one of the things I was nervous about was like how Matt was going to travel because he's not a big travel bug. Like go and
Mhm.
be there, fine. But like we did a lot of traveling. So um the cab driver drives us.
What was his, like, apprehension to Argentina? He was just like,
He was just like, why the fuck are we crossing the border? Like what, like
"Oh,
we're
okay.
supposed to be in Brazil. Like what do you
Okay."
mean we're going to Argentina? And the line was kind of brutal at the only the first time, luckily. We had to go because we were seeing the falls from the Brazil side. So the Guazú Falls border Argentina and Brazil, and we were
Mhm.
seeing them from the Brazilian side. So that means we went back and forth between the border 4 times in 2 days.
Okay,
So like
got
we
it.
stayed in Argentina and then the next morning we went back to Brazil to see the falls and then we went back to Argentina to sleep and then we went back to Brazil to go back to
So wait,
Rio.
when you crossed the border, did they, like, investigate your car with, like, drug dogs and shit or, like, make
No.
you it
No, it
wasn't
was
like that?
nothing. No, but it was a lot because like in Europe, I've like driven from country to country and you literally just drive. And the only reason I
Mhm.
knew that I was in a new country is because T-Mobile was like, welcome to Belgium. And I was like, oh
Right.
shit, we're in Belgium. Not like that in South America. It was
Okay.
kind of similar, honestly. Like we're also Americans, so I feel like we all Americans just have the privilege of getting the upper hand for the most part. In terms of like trust, like people are excited to have Americans there because they're probably tourists and they're probably spending money.
Mhm.
I feel like it might be harder if you're, from another South American country and, you know, you're more likely to be like smuggling something.
Right.
Um, so it was very similar to like crossing the border from like America to Canada. We did have to get out of our car though and go like wait in a line, get our passport stamp. So my passport has like 4 Brazil stamps now.
Nice.
Um,
And a
and
surprise Argentina stamp that I'm sure you weren't expecting.
no, and now like when I asked Matt about his rose and thorn, he says like the best part was the happy accident of accidentally going to Argentina for 2 nights. It was so cool. It was so unexpected. It was a 30-minute drive from the Brazilian airport, but it was so different. Like you were so clearly in a different country.
Mhm.
It was a smaller city. It was safer. Like we didn't have to feel like we were like holding on to our things or we're gonna get pickpocketed. Our hotel was literally just like plopped in the middle of this neighborhood somehow. We could walk everywhere to all the restaurants, all the bars, all the different coffee shops. And yeah, it ended up just, and like the food was so different. Of course, like the wine was made in Argentina. So we were
Mhm.
drinking like a bunch of Argentinian Malbecs and Cabs, which are my favorite. So that was awesome. I definitely want to go back to Argentina and spend more time there. We were sitting at this restaurant the second night, and Matt was like, "See, this is the kind of place that I want to see more of. Like, this is where I want to travel." He's like, "This city reminds me of Pittsburgh," and I'm like, "Bro, swerve, huh?" And he's like, and then it actually made sense. He's like, because he's like, it's not some big, well-known, like touristy spot. It's a small, lively, like
Right.
vibrant city where there's
It's, like, less
people everywhere.
overwhelming of a city.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if someone's coming to America, they're not going to be like, I'm going to Pittsburgh. But if they
Right.
came here, they'd be pleasantly surprised.
Agreed.
It
They go to
kind
New
of
York,
felt like an exactly New York,
and it's
LA,
overwhelming, and
Chicago.
it's expensive,
Sucks,
and you have to
honestly.
worry about yeah, exactly. I don't like New York City, like, I never
Me
have.
neither. Yeah.
But I agree, like, there is, I like smaller cities, like, that just feel to me, I guess the word is normal, but that's not, like,
Yeah.
an accurate word, but
Like a
just it
community
yeah, it feels like there's just a bunch of people around that are friendly
living.
and yeah, exactly. It's not like a big to do. When I go to New York, I feel
Exactly.
like my anxiety or my like my sympathetic nervous system is on the whole fucking time. Like
Literally
you are constantly you
on
don't have to go
alert.
there.
I
Exactly.
don't like that either. And honestly, like Rio was very similar to New York City with a beach. It was kind of like a New York, Chicago, Miami thing, but honestly, like
Right.
I wouldn't compare it to any of those at the same time because it's just its own city. It's
Right.
really wasn't like anything I'd been to, but it was big city vibes,
Yeah. Yeah.
like New York, you know?
Is
Um,
Rio like the biggest city in South America?
I think Sao Paulo is, which
Okay.
we were going to go to, which we actually had flights to and then decided to, and we like changed our plans.
Yeah.
Um, and the reason why was because we learned that Sao Paulo was bigger or is bigger than Rio, from my understanding. And we were like, do we really want to go to two big cities or do we want to like go
Right.
to a, so that's why we chose not to go there. Um, but yeah, like we were there also on a Friday and Saturday night. So we were in like the small town on the weekend, which was really awesome and on
Yeah.
accident. So like they had roads blocked off and they had like fairs and vendors and like people playing music and like all the shops were just open and the restaurants like had tables all the way out into the streets and it was just
That
like
is a happy
so
accident
cool.
because that's like exactly what I would want to have in any city I was
Yeah.
visiting.
Yeah,
That's
it
like
gives me
perfect.
goosebumps. Yeah, Matt and
Yeah.
I were sitting there and we were like, dude. And they
Lucked
spoke
out.
in Argentina. It made it a little bit easier because they speak Spanish and Matt and I speak better Spanish. But like we went to this one place. I like posted a picture of me holding the two huge beers and where Matt's like Argentinian cerveza and the guy like points to it and he's like, "Okay, we'll have two of those." And the guy's like, "A big one or a little one?" And what we were trying to say was like, "Oh, let's do because they have in South America like we have our regular sized beer bottles. They've got like their
Mhm.
huge ones too." And people, this sounds so silly, but people will literally buy a large bottle of beer and then have it like on ice, like literally a bottle of wine or champagne. And then they get their own glasses and they share the beer. And so that's what we tried to do. We're like one big cerveza and like two glasses. And he brings us two like 1 liter beers. And like the picture doesn't even do it justice. So we have like two huge beers. And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna die if I drink this whole thing. And he's like, I was like, I'm sorry, but I can't finish it. He's like, I don't know why you're apologizing. I will drink all of this beer. And I'm like, okay, good. Because I can't like I'm down to drink, but like this beer is gonna make me tired and bloated and like no. So, anyways, that was probably top two
What was the
favorite
name of that
parts.
town in Argentina where you ended up?
It's called Puerta Iguazu. And so that's why it was so confusing is because Iguazu Falls is where we were going. Iguazu is a
Right.
river and it's spelled three different ways depending on the language. So in English, it's spelled with two S's. In Spanish, it's spelled with a Z. And in Portuguese, it's spelled with a C and like the accent underneath it
Mhm.
because the sound is like S,
Right.
like in English. Um, and the city in Brazil, which is right there, is called Foz do Iguazu, and then there's Puerta Iguazu, and so I accidentally booked the hotel for Iguazu. Um, but yeah, it was awesome. Like I'm so happy that we had two really amazing, fantastic dinners at these really nice restaurants. The first night I had we had a bottle of wine, we had shrimp why can't I think of what it's called? Shrimp tempura. And then Matt had a T-bone with like potatoes, and I had a ribeye with gnocchi, and it was 46 American dollars.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like I was like, what the hell? Um, so and then the second restaurant that we went to, so then we went to Iguazu Falls the next morning and I just booked us a random tour through like the national parks website and it was like an additional $60 might have been total or per person but regardless 60 or $120 extra to make it private and so I was like duh I'm gonna do that so the most amazing man his name's Christopher shows up to our hotel then Saturday morning we walk out it's like 7:30 in the morning and he's like, Madam Montana, Madam Montana. And I'm like, oh, that's us. And he's like, immediately just like amazing energy. Like, I was just like, oh, we're going to have a fucking great day with this guy. He was just like so passionate about sharing this culture and these falls and this national park. He was so smart. Like, he spoke so many languages. He was like talking about the differences of languages and then like talking about like Spanish from Mexico and then he would speak in Spanish from Mexico and that's the Spanish I'm used to and I'm like that
Mhm.
sounds just like Mexican Spanish and then he'd be like and then the Spain Spanish and then he'd be like and then Italian da, 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 and he just like could speak in all these languages and he was just like he made the experience of Iguazu Falls like that much better. I really can't put it into words. If anyone ever wants to go to Iguazu Falls, you have to hire this man to show you. He's a professor at a university. He does this on the side for fun. He has two daughters. Um, just fun fact, one of his daughters is a lesbian. And so like we were talking about that, and he basically was sharing with us like how he grew up very traditional and conservative and in a Catholic family. And so his daughter's like opening up new horizons to him. And he's like learned so much by like letting her find her own way. And it was just so beautiful on so many different levels. And so the second that night when we went to dinner, he's like, I know this amazing restaurant. It's walking distance from your hotel. I bring my wife there on our wedding anniversary every year. If you want me to make you reservations, you can. And we were like, yes. And it was the best meal ever. We ordered more steak. We ordered three desserts. We ordered two bottles of wine and just took one back to the hotel with us. And then I was like, dude, we're leaving tomorrow. Like, how are we going to bring we only carried like our backpacking backpack. So I was like, how are we going to get this on the plane? And Matt's like, we're going to pour it in a water bottle and no one's going to say nothing. And that's what we did. We poured this like really nice bottle of Argentinian wine, like in a freaking water bottle. And we're like, well, we'll drink it in the next place. Um, Anyways, it was amazing. That was the falls were just like out of this world. We got to see, so the Argentinian side is 80% of the falls and the Brazil is 20% of the falls. So we were on the Brazilian side, but seeing the view of Argentina. So like the Argentina falls when you're in them are better, but like the view of them is obviously better. So they say that Brazil is like the balcony essentially. Like
Mm.
Argentina is the beauty and Brazil's the balcony. And so we got to see them from like so many different perspectives. And then we like walked through, there's this pathway that's like in the middle of them, sort of. And we got to walk there and you just get drenched by the falls. And there was like so many rainbows. And it was cloudy in the morning. And by the time we got to the part where you go in the middle, like the skies had opened and it was just like sunny and beautiful and bizarre. And then we also decided to take a boat, and the boat literally took us like under the waterfall, like inside the
Oh,
waterfall.
wow.
Yeah, three times. And afterward, Matt was like, dude, Montana, I hope you realize like that would never fucking happen in America. Like everyone's so happy. And like if something happens in Brazil, like they're gonna be like, pay for it on your own. The government's not paying for your shit. So like I mean, we were in it. It was so cool. So yeah, it was just like really special. I also watched Up on that flight on the way there because it's like Paradise Falls, and I was just it was just surreal. Um, so then on Sunday, we flew back to Rio, and this random man who I'd found on WhatsApp picked us up and drove us 2 hours to this island called Ilha Granja. And then we got on a boat, and I had a feeling from this like quote unquote resort that I found. Essentially, it was like a hostel resort, all inclusive thingy in the middle of nowhere, like in the cut. I had a feeling that like we were gonna get on this little tiny speedboat, just me and Matt, like with our bags, and this person was gonna drive us or on his boat to the place, and that's exactly what happened. We got out of the cab, we got our backpacks, we jumped on this boat, and it was just the two of us, and we drove 30 minutes on this boat to this random island that had one little tiny, like again, quote unquote, resort there. No one spoke English. Eventually, we found one lady who worked there who spoke like a little bit of English. Her name was Shayla. Shout out Shayla. Everybody else, like, I mean, it was full out like translate, translate, translate. Um, it was amazing. The first day, so that we had 3 days to relax after like all those crazy travels. But being Matt and myself, more so Matt, but I can't also blame it all on him. The first day, Matt's like, why don't we hike? So I'm like, all right. So we ended up hiking for like 6 hours. We found this restaurant that was floating in the middle of the ocean. Um, the food were there was so good. That's probably like the best meal in Brazil that we had. It was like Brazilian curry almost. It was so freaking
Mm.
amazing. And then we came back and we had dinner and at the resort and went to bed. We watched Lilo and Stitch. And that was like, oh, we went to dinner with Kaja and her husband on Saturday to when we're back in America to say goodbye. our friend Kaja, who we talk about all the time, we'll have her on eventually. And we're like, yeah, we watched Lilo and Stitch while we were on the island. And her husband Steve was like, why? And Matt was like, because they're on an island, we're on an island. And he's like, of all the island movies, you picked Lilo and Stitch. We were like, yeah. And
Comfort movie.
it was so, yeah, and I like forgot about how good it is. Like when she sings Elvis, that shit's hilarious. Anyways, then the second day, we um woke up, we're just chilling on the beach, and there was this family. This is probably my second favorite part of the story, second to Argentina. There was this family. So it was a mom, two daughters, and a grandma. So like three generations. And they also spoke no English. And Matt, so one of the girls, they were 11 and 13, we later learned. So the 11-year-old was like super girly, like, little 11-year-old girl. The 13-year-old girl, I say this with like all the love in the world, Matt and I both thought that she was a little boy. She was like ultra tomboy, like short hair, was wearing like swim trunks and like a long sleeve, like surfer top. Um,
Mm.
and then something like, I don't know, at one point I like had this inkling. I was like, oh my God, I was like, that's a little girl. I was like, fuck us. Like she kept wanting to, her and Matt were playing soccer together. Sorry, one second. Okay, sorry. Denham was really excited about the story. So anyways, yeah, so she was playing soccer with Matt, like she was like just a little tomboy. And you not to say like we judged a book by by its cover, but like she really looked like a little boy, we thought. And she doesn't speak any English, so we didn't know. And the only reason that we found out was because their mom, who, like, I don't know how to explain her, like she just felt a little like she had like really dark hair and like really dark makeup, like even on the beach, and just kind of felt like the girl in The Incredibles, the one that's invisible. Like she gave me those vibes. Like she didn't want anyone to talk to her. She was just
Okay.
like closed off and like, I don't want to say rough around the edges, but just like dark, not in a bad
Mhm.
way, just dark. And so I was like, I just thought that she was just annoyed by us essentially. Um, and then she came up to me at one point and with her phone, like showed me on her translator app. She said, we're going to go on a boat. Me and my family are going on a boat. Would you and your husband want to come? And I was like, oh my God, yeah. I was like, duh. And I was like, I said, like, back in the translator app, I'm like, let me go ask my husband. So I went and asked Matt, and Matt's like, when do we leave? And how long are we going to be out? And when do we get back? And so I asked her, I'm like, he wants to know all this stupid shit. And she was like, it's my friend. So like we can leave whenever we want. You want to leave in 15 minutes? He's going to take us to a lagoon and an island, and then we can come back whenever we want. Like it's just us. And so Matt was kind of hesitant at first and was like, I don't want to. And I was like, dude, why not? Like we're sitting here for 2 more days. Let's go on the ocean, bro. Like, come
Yeah.
on. And so I very easily, but convinced Matt to do it. We get on this boat, and immediately, like this woman just like opens up. Oh, it's also, I left out a very important part. That morning at breakfast, the only people at the resort is that family and me and Matt, mind you. We're the only people
Oh,
there.
wow.
There were 9 bedrooms, and we were the only two in bedrooms. The other bedrooms were being occupied by some of the workers. And that morning when we had breakfast, they brought out a birthday cake for her. So it was her birthday. And so like we sang happy birthday to her, and I was like, Inglés, happy birthday. Español, feliz cumpleaños. And I was like, Portuguese, I don't know. And they like taught me how to say it, and it's really hard, but it's like feliz, looks like anniversaros or something. So bad at Portuguese. So we get on this boat, and she immediately like opens up, like she like was so like the water, like she was like, oh, like so happy to be on the water. And so we start like communicating. We're with them for hours, and like we don't have translator apps, like we're not using our phones, and we just like learn like their gestures and the way that they communicate, and the same with us. And so we're just like having this amazing time on this boat with this family that like we can't even speak the same language. And so we end up going to this place called the Verde Lagoon, and the boat just like pops up, puts the anchor down, and it's on the like Patagonia side, so the water's really really cold. And Matt was like, you ready for this tan? Like we're gonna, it's like think about your cold plunges. And we dive in, and you like swim to the middle of the lagoon, and there's like fish everywhere and the water's like so clear and it was
Oh my
amazing.
God.
Yeah, and this
Say
woman
that again. It's
like
Verde Lagoon.
yes, in Ilagranja, Ilhagrande, and it's called the Verde Lagoon or Lagoon Verde. I think it's Lagoon Verde actually.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, it's like between these two rocks, and there were like a few other boats there, and there was like a big, huge boat. It was clearly for like tourists that like they like pile sardine the people on. And I was like, Matt, how is it that like we have never, through all of our tours and our experiences and everything we've done on this trip, we've never had to find ourselves on one of those fucking things. I'm like, we're on this random nice ass speedboat with these people that don't speak English. And it was 400, we split it and it was 400 reals. So 246 was $80 for however many hours. Um, anyways, then we drive over to this beach and the
This
beach
lagoon
just
looks ridiculous, by the way. I just
yeah,
Googled it as
everyone
we're
look it
talking.
up. It's
Oh my God.
crazy, isn't it? And it literally was green, but like
Yeah.
clear. And yeah, it was so cool. And this woman just like she just clearly was so happy to be on the water. Like she just her energy changed. So then we go to this island. There's like not that many people there. The sun's starting to set, and there's this random bartender. And so I'm like, time for caipirinhas. And so I order one for the three of us. The grandma's like, no, 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 no. She's like, I don't drink that. And obviously the two little girls didn't. So we're sitting, we're talking, and again, I can't explain to you how we like actually communicated this, but it wasn't in English. So she says to me, the mom says to me, like, it's my birthday today, so I'm a Libra. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're a Libra. And she's like, what are you? And I'm like, Sagittarius. And she's like, Sagittarius, I love Sagittarius, amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what are your kids? And she says she's a Taurus and she's a Cancer. And so we were like Taurus, and she's like so confident, like blah 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 blah. And then I was like Cancer. She's like drama, 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 drama. And this is when she tells me she's like everyone thinks that they're brother and sister, but they're sisters. They're my daughters. And she was like she's just a tomboy. And I was like, oh, I was like. I'm so stupid. She's like, no, no, you're not stupid. She's like, you didn't say anything. I'm just telling you, like, they're both little girls. And I was like, okay, okay, okay. And I like at that point I had kind of like had that feeling and I was like, I knew it. Like I knew they were both
Hmm.
little girls. Um, and uh and then she asked, so what's your husband? And I'm like, Virgo. And she like can't understand what I'm saying. So I literally write in the sand, like VIR. And she's like, Virgin, however they say it in Portuguese. And she literally goes, it makes perfect sense. The Sagittarius says, yes, let's go on the boat. Who cares? And the Virgo says, when are we leaving? How long are we gonna be there? When are we gonna get back? And I was dying. And Matt was sitting there. He's like, of fucking course, Montana, we're on the other side of the fucking planet
You're
and you're
talking
talking to some
astrology.
astrology. And I was like, she started it. She started it. So that was so cool. So then we went to our last island and it was literally just us on this island. It was crazy. And then we hiked, the boat driver essentially said, like, go talk to them in Portuguese and said, like, walk around this way and meet me. So we did like a little hike and then met him out at this other place. And then he drove us back and we hung out. We like, showered and shit and then had dinner together. And while we're having dinner together, we're using our translator app again. And she literally wrote to me, um, I am a cancer survivor. I have 2 more years of remission. And I was like,
Oh wow.
what? Yeah, I was like, oh my God. And then as I'm like looking at her as like the Incredibles, like invisible girl, I'm like, yeah, no
Yeah.
wonder you're closed off. Like, dude, like it was
Yeah.
such a reminder for me. Like, not that I judged her at all. I had no judgment. I was thinking like her being closed off had anything to do with me. Like
Right.
I was like, oh, she's annoyed by me. Fuck you, Montana. She didn't give a shit about me. She was
Mm-hmm.
just fucking beat cancer and is trying
Mm-hmm.
to have a good birthday. Like she's trying to just be happy. And so she literally types out in the translator app. I woke up this morning and I didn't want to do anything, but after I saw your husband playing soccer with my daughter, um, you changed my birthday and I decided that we should have some fun.
Aw.
I was literally
Wow.
like, I can't take this. I was like, I've had too much to drink. I'm emotional. Um, it was so cool. So then we had a bonfire that night and we all hung out by the bonfire and it was just like so special. And then we went to bed. We woke up the next morning and they left. We had one more night, or one, Matt and I had one more day. This is the only day that we did absolutely nothing. And so, of course, Matt got really antsy. And I was like, this was our second to last day before we came back to the States. And I was in my feels. I was like sad. I didn't want it to be over. Like the family left, like everything just felt like sad and heavy. Um, but we like made the best of it, even though we were both like just not the happiest.
It's like
And
the
then
ultimate Sunday scaries.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It was like it was not a good feeling. And then we went to bed really early. We like didn't drink at all that day. It was probably the only day that we didn't have like at least something like
Mhm.
a drink. Um yeah, we just like straight up chilled and let ourselves be sad. And then yeah, went to bed really early. Like I mean, dinner was at 6:30. We ate dinner and went straight to sleep. So we woke up the next day. We drove the boat back to the little town, and then they drove us again 2 hours back to Rio. And we had one more night in Rio. And that was like really, that night was really important, I feel like, because if we would have left feeling like sad and gloomy and shit, then that would have been really hard to come home. But we had one more night to like explore and be in the city. And then like we were like grateful that everything happened and like ready, but not eager, but ready to be home. Like it was like, okay, like this feels like a good like closing day.
Mm.
And then we flew back the next morning and we had a direct from Rio to Atlanta, which was 10 and a half hours. And
Oof.
it was actually really good. Like it was actually a Delta flight because we were going into the States. We flew economy. We were like in the back toward the back, but it was 232. So we had like two seats, just the two of us. Nobody else was next to
Mhm.
us. And even Matt was like, that was like not bad at all. I'm like, I totally agree. So then we got back to Atlanta. Atlanta to Pittsburgh was not fun. I was like, get me out of this airplane.
Mhm.
And then we came home and we got to say hi to our dog. So yeah, it was, thanks for letting me tell that story. It was amazing. And everyone should go to Rio. And oh, the last thing that I was going to say, I tried to do yoga one morning. I like went to the front desk and was like, where do I meet for the yoga?" And they're like, "You had to register last night." And I was like, "No." So I did one run in Rio, and that, other than like hiking and walking, that was like all the yoga that I did. But we did so much yoga off the mat and my heart cracked open and we met so many amazing people and I can't wait for the next adventure. But I'm also very excited now for like some normalcy and some routine. And I was very excited that like coming back is always not so bad when you have like a really cool place to come home to
Mhm.
and awesome people to come home to. Um, so yeah, 3 weeks and we're in Tulum, baby.
I love the idea of I think just like the one thing about travel is it is hard. I'm with Matt kind of in like preparing to go away makes me feel anxious even if it's somewhere I want
Totally.
to go. And I love the idea of being somewhere else and I love adventures and I love getting out of like a routine and a schedule, but traveling, the act of it makes me anxious. Um,
A lot.
but it's so important to do it because like that's such a eye-opening experience no matter where you go, no matter who you're with or who you are. If you like meet people that are different than you, that
Yes.
you would never ever interact with in your life had you not gone to that one place and been there on that one day. And then it's just like kind of those little stories that just make life more exciting. Like those
Yeah,
little connections you form and it just kind of helps you realize that like we're not really all that different. Like you could be in such a
exactly.
foreign feeling place and you can't barely communicate verbally with somebody, but you can somehow still create a connection and a closeness where you
Yeah.
feel like there was a bond. And I don't know, that's really cool. It's just
It's
a way that I think if more people did that and had more interactions like that, we would be less likely to just kind of, put people in specific boxes and just decide a whole type of person is a type of way or, it's eye-opening. It's something,
yeah.
I love that story about that family and just that, like, you guys could not have been any more different, and you
Mm-mm.
somehow spent, like, a really memorable time together for, like, 2 days in the middle of fucking ocean on an island where
Yeah.
nobody else was there. Like, that's a fucking really cool experience. That's
It
amazing.
really, yeah, I have chills everywhere. It was amazing. And another one of the guys that we met on the tour, Alejandro from Chile, he like actually saw my Himsa tattoo and I was wearing Himsa earrings. And so he was sitting across from me at lunch and somehow asked me also, he was like, he's like, are you an Aries? And he started it. And I was like, no. I was like, I'm a Sagittarius. He's like,
I'm a
oh,
different
still
fire sign.
Still fire. Yeah. And he's like, I'm fire too. And I was like, you're Leo. And he's like, I'm Leo. So we like connected on that. And then whenever he came up to our room, he saw my Oracle card deck. And so he was like, oh, I knew you'd have something like this. And he's like, can we pull cards? And I'm like, sure. So we pull three cards. And then I was like, I feel like we should pull a fourth one. We pull a fourth one. It was the anchor card, the grounded card. And he just opened up to me about how he's a therapist. And he essentially, to make a long story short, here, like he um, was in a really like in a relationship where they were like really serious and they had like met each other's families and the other guy that he was dating was like he was like I want to be with you forever and I want to have kids with you and I want to get married and blah 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 and then like out of nowhere was like this is actually too much for me and you've pushed me too far and blah blah blah, blah. Yeah. And so he said that like and they work together at the same therapy practice.
Oh
And
my God.
so he said that like at work he like had a panic attack essentially and like freaked out and so his boss was like how about you take 2 weeks off and just go figure out what's going on with you and your heart and your brain and he was like that's why I'm here. He was like because yeah he was like I'm literally my boss gave me 2 weeks so I just came to Brazil and I was like when do you go back and he's like tomorrow and I was like oh
Oof.
I was like how do you feel he was like I don't know. So yeah, like little things like that. Again, it just like helps you. And the reason I bring up the anchor card is because the anchor card is what I can't remember exactly. Again, he spoke better English, but he had an anchor tattoo and something else, something about the anchor like reminded him of that guy. And so like his ex-boyfriend essentially. And so he was like told me the whole story and we just sat there and like for hours just like unpacked that and so many details and I was just like dude I was like I've been on your side and I've been on his side in my own experiences like he wants his
Hmm.
cake and he wants to have his cake and eat it too and that's the most annoying phrase in the world but it's so true like
Yep.
that is what he wants to have you he wants to dangle this carrot in front of you but he doesn't want to commit fully and like who am I you just met me today I'm some random girl from Texas um but yeah, it was so like the reason I bring that up too is because it's like that is what makes it. I saw Jennifer Vogel. I took her class this morning and she said that too. She was like, "How was your trip?" We're talking. And I'm like, "Amazing." And she's like, "I feel like the best part about traveling is meeting new people from other
Yeah.
places." She's like, "And it
Always.
looks like you did that." And I was like, "Oh yeah, we made friends." So I'm gonna send this podcast to all of the people that I shouted out to and be
You
like,
should.
"Hey, shout out." And for my Brazilian friends who only speak Portuguese, I'm gonna be like, you're gonna have to translate this with closed captioning because your girl's back to only English.
And we're
Um,
yapping fast. We're not slow.
yeah, so fast. And yeah, that took an hour. So thanks for listening to
It's
my
okay.
story for an hour.
I do remember earlier on in one of our episodes, you mentioned, I think we were talking about the things that make us feel the most alive. And I think your thing was being somewhere that you've never been and talking to strangers that you've never met. So
Yes.
you had a good 2 weeks of reminding yourself you're alive.
It's like plugging in an iPhone.
Oh, you mean like you're charged, you're fully
Yes.
back.
Yes.
Your
Yes.
battery is charged and you
Yeah.
only have 3 weeks till your next adventure.
Yeah. Tell me you're an extrovert without telling me you're an extrovert. Must go to foreign lands and meet new people to
And
feel
meet
plugged
strangers.
in. Yeah. But yeah, 3 more weeks and we'll be in Tulum together making new friends too. And with it's gonna be so relaxing. It's gonna be amazing. So transformative and beautiful and I'm so excited.
Me
Um
too.
so on the next episode, you guys will get to hear May talk more, I promise.
It's fine. I don't mind not yapping. It was like a nice break, actually.
All right, good. Well,
There was one
This
day last week where I taught a bunch of classes and I had to do something that required a lot of talking. And I was sitting on the couch and I forget what I think Ed was like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He's like, "You're just really quiet." And I was like, "To be
for
honest, I'm
once.
literally tired of hearing myself talk. I'm fucking sick of myself and my own voice, and I don't want to hear it. Like I'm done. So I'm fine with just listening to you for a while
Yeah.
because I don't mind. I talk way too fucking much, and every now and then I just get sick of myself. So we're good.
Feel that. That's why we have a podcast.
Yeah, bingo.
But yeah, thanks for letting me share. And for anyone that was listening, thanks for listening. And if you have any additional questions, please ask because I would talk and yap about this until the cows come home.
Also, listen to our podcast and tell all your friends,
Yes.
and we're just gonna keep shamelessly plugging it. That's the theme of 2025.
Yeah, we've got some really cool guests lined up for season 2, and we're really
We do.
excited to share their stories with you. So, um, that's all we got for today.
Okay.
That's a wrap.
Bye.
Peace.
Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.